The mining station Kepler 442b hummed with the constant drone of atmosphere processors, their mechanical heartbeat the only thing standing between humanity and the toxic nitrogen storms that raged across the planet's surface. Maya Chun pressed her palm against the reinforced viewport of Level 7, watching the alien landscape ripple beneath sheets of corrosive rain. At 17, she had spent more years on this desolate rock than she had on Earth, yet the sight still filled her with a mixture of wonder and unease. "Another beautiful day in paradise," she muttered, her breath fogging the thick plasteel. The mining colony had been her home for 8 years now, ever since her parents had signed the colonial contract that promised prosperity among the stars. What they had found instead was backbreaking labor extracting rare Earth elements from the planet's crust, all while dodging the violent weather patterns that could strip flesh from bone in seconds. Maya turned away from the window and made her way through the cramped corridors of the residential section. The walls were lined with pipes carrying recycled water, their surfaces slick with condensation that never quite dried in the humid artificial atmosphere. Every drop was precious here, filtered and refiltered through systems that had been patched and repatched so many times that the original manufacturers would hardly recognize them. She paused at the hydroponics bay, where rows of engineered vegetables grew under harsh artificial lighting. Her job as a maintenance technician kept her busy ensuring the life support systems functioned properly, but she had volunteered for extra shifts in the growing bays. There was something comforting about tending to living things in this sterile environment, watching green shoots push through synthetic soil toward manufactured sunlight. The emergency klaxon suddenly split the air, its harsh wail echoing through the station's corridors. Maya's heart jumped as red warning lights began flashing, casting everything in an ominous crimson glow. She had heard this alarm only twice before during her time on Kepler 442b, both times signaling critical system failures that had come dangerously close to killing everyone aboard. "All personnel to emergency stations," came the voice of Commander Harrison over the intercom system. "We have detected an unidentified object on long-range sensors. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Maya abandoned her work in the hydroponics bay and rushed toward the central command center, joining the stream of miners, technicians, and security personnel who were all converging on the station's nerve center. The command center was a cramped space filled with flickering monitors and jury-rigged equipment that somehow managed to keep them connected to the rest of human civilization, though messages took months to travel between Kepler 442b and Earth. Commander Harrison stood before the main display screen, his weathered face grim as he studied the sensor readings. The man was in his 60s, a veteran of 3 previous colonial missions who had volunteered for this assignment to escape some tragedy back on Earth that he never discussed. His silver hair was cropped short, and his uniform bore the stains and patches that came from years of making do with limited resources. "What are we looking at, Commander?" asked Dr. Sarah Okafor, the station's chief scientist. She was a tall woman with dark skin and intelligent eyes that seemed to take in every detail of their surroundings. Maya had always admired her calm demeanor in crisis situations, the way she could analyze problems with clinical precision even when their lives hung in the balance. "Something big," Harrison replied, pointing to the fuzzy image on the screen. "Our sensors picked it up about an hour ago, moving through the asteroid field in Sector 7. At first, we thought it might be a rogue asteroid, but the trajectory is too precise. It's definitely artificial." Maya pushed closer to get a better look at the display. The object appeared to be roughly cylindrical, perhaps 3 kilometers in length, with what looked like organic curves and protrusions that defied any known engineering principles. Its surface seemed to shimmer and shift as if it were alive rather than constructed from metal and composite materials. "Could it be another human ship?" asked Marcus Webb, the head of security. He was a broad-shouldered man with suspicious eyes who had served in the Outer Colony Defense Force before taking this position. Maya had noticed that he always kept one hand near his sidearm, even during routine meetings like this one. Dr. Okafor shook her head, her expression troubled. "The design doesn't match anything in our databases. The proportions are all wrong, and those surface patterns, they look almost biological. I don't think we're dealing with human technology here." A chill ran down Maya's spine as the implication sank in. In all the centuries since humanity had begun expanding beyond Earth's solar system, they had never encountered any signs of intelligent alien life. There had been microorganisms on a few worlds, some primitive plant analogs on others, but nothing that suggested the existence of spacefaring civilizations. The discovery of such a vessel would change everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the universe. Range and speed. Harrison asked the sensor technician, a nervous young man named Rodriguez who had joined the colony only 6 months earlier. Approximately 400,000 kilometers and closing, Rodriguez replied, his voice cracking slightly. Current velocity suggests they'll reach our orbit within 18 hours, assuming they maintain their present course and speed. The command center fell silent except for the hum of life support systems and the distant rumble of the atmospheric processors. Maya could hear her own heartbeat in her ears as she tried to process what this might mean for their small colony. They were miners and technicians, not diplomats or soldiers. Their weapons consisted of mining charges and a few small arms for dealing with the occasional mechanical failure or accident. If the approaching vessel contained hostile aliens, they would be completely defenseless. Recommendations? Harrison asked, his gaze sweeping across the assembled personnel. Dr. Okafor spoke first. We should attempt to establish communication. If this is indeed an alien vessel, first contact protocols dictate that we try to make peaceful contact before taking any aggressive actions. Marcus Webb disagreed, his hand moving unconsciously toward his weapon. With respect, Doctor, we don't have any idea what we're dealing with. For all we know, that thing could be a warship scouting ahead of an invasion fleet. I recommend we power up our defensive systems and prepare for evacuation if necessary. Defensive systems? Dr. Okafor laughed bitterly. Marcus, our defensive systems consist of a few mining lasers and some emergency beacon transmitters. If whoever is aboard that ship means us harm, we might as well throw rocks at them. Maya found herself speaking before she had consciously decided to join the conversation. What if they need help? She asked, her voice cutting through the tension. I mean, we're assuming this is some kind of exploration or military vessel, but what if it's damaged? What if they're in distress? Harrison turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful. Maya had worked with the commander for 3 years and had earned his respect through her dedication and problem-solving abilities, but she still felt nervous speaking up in front of the senior staff. Explain your reasoning, he said. Well, Maya began, gathering her thoughts. Look at their trajectory. They're not heading straight for us. They're kind of wandering. And that irregular movement pattern Rodriguez mentioned earlier, it could be consistent with a damaged navigation system or failing engines. Plus, if they were hostile, why announce their presence by coming in so obviously? Would an invasion force try to approach more stealthily? Dr. Okafor nodded slowly. She has a point. The movement patterns are inconsistent with a controlled approach, and the energy signatures we're detecting are much lower than we would expect from an active military vessel. Or it could be exactly what they want us to think, Marcus countered. Appear helpless and vulnerable, wait for us to lower our guard, then strike when we're not expecting it. Commander Harrison held up a hand for silence. We'll proceed cautiously. Dr. Okafor began working on a universal greeting transmission. Include mathematical progressions, basic physics constants, anything that might demonstrate our intelligence and peaceful intentions. Marcus, I want you to quietly prepare our evacuation procedures, but keep it low-key. I don't want to start a panic among the civilian population. What about me? Maya asked. Harrison considered for a moment. You're our best systems technician. I want you to monitor all our sensors and communication equipment. If that vessel tries to contact us, you'll likely be the first to detect it. Can you handle that responsibility? Maya nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and terror at being given such an important task. Yes, sir. I won't let you down. The next several hours passed in a blur of activity as the station prepared for humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. Dr. Okafor and her team worked frantically to develop communication protocols, while Marcus Webb organized security sweeps and evacuation drills disguised as routine maintenance. Maya stationed herself at the primary sensor console, monitoring the approaching vessel and fine-tuning their detection equipment to gather as much information as possible. As the hours passed, more details became visible. The alien ship was indeed enormous, dwarfing their modest mining station by several orders of magnitude. Its surface was covered in what appeared to be scales or plates that shifted and moved in complex patterns, giving it an almost serpentine appearance. Organic-looking protrusions extended from various points along its hull, some resembling fins or wings, others looking more like sensory organs or weapons. "It's beautiful," Dr. Okafor whispered as they gathered around the main display to study the latest images. "Look at those flowing lines, the way everything seems to grow naturally from the central structure. This isn't just engineering, it's art." Maya had to agree. Despite her fear of the unknown, she found herself captivated by the alien vessel's graceful design. It looked like something that had evolved rather than been built, as if some massive space-dwelling creature had been converted into a starship through technologies beyond human understanding. "Range?" Harrison asked. 200,000 kilometers, and closing, Rodriguez reported. "Still maintaining course toward our position, though the speed has decreased slightly. They'll reach us in approximately 8 hours at current velocity." "Any response to our transmission attempts?" "Negative, sir. We've been broadcasting on multiple frequencies for the past 4 hours, but there's been no acknowledgement." Maya frowned as she studied the energy readings from her console. Something was bothering her about the patterns she was seeing, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. The power signatures were definitely lower than expected for a vessel of that size, but there was something else, something irregular about the way the energy was distributed throughout the ship. "Commander," she said slowly, "I think there might be a problem with their ship." Harrison moved to look over her shoulder at the sensor readings. "What are you seeing?" "Well, these power distribution patterns don't make sense for a healthy vessel. Look here," she pointed to a cluster of readings on her screen. "Most of the energy seems to be concentrated in the forward sections, while the rear third of the ship is showing almost no activity at all. And these fluctuations in the primary power core, it looks like their reactor or whatever they use for propulsion might be failing." Dr. Okafor joined them at Maya's console, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "You're right. And look at these atmospheric readings from their hull. The composition is all wrong for a pressurized environment. I'm detecting massive amounts of nitrogen and carbon dioxide, but very little oxygen or water vapor." "What does that mean?" Maya asked. "It could mean their life support systems are failing," Dr. Okafor replied grimly. "Or it could mean they breathe a completely different atmospheric mixture than we do. Either way, if they're in distress, we may be their only hope for survival." Marcus Webb approached their group, his expression skeptical. "Or it could mean they're trying to make us think they're helpless, so we'll drop our guard. I still say we should maintain our distance and wait to see what they do." Before anyone could respond to his objection, Maya's console erupted in a cascade of alerts and warning signals. She quickly ran through the diagnostic procedures she had memorized during her years of technical training, trying to determine what was causing the system overload. "We're receiving some kind of transmission," she announced, her fingers flying over the control interface. "But it's not coming through our communication systems. It's affecting our power grid somehow." The lights in the command center began to flicker, and several of the secondary monitors went dark. Maya could hear the atmosphere processors cycling down as emergency power protocols kicked in, automatically shutting down non-essential systems to preserve life support functions. "What kind of transmission?" Harrison demanded. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she worked to isolate the signal and determine its source. "I don't know. It's not like anything I've ever seen before. The signal seems to be modulated on multiple frequencies simultaneously, and it's carrying some kind of electromagnetic pulse that's interfering with our electronics." "Could it be an attack?" Marcus asked, his hand already moving toward the emergency alarm. "No," Dr. Okafor said, studying the readouts with fascination. "Look at the pattern. It's too regular, too structured to be a weapon. I think they're trying to communicate, but their transmission methods are so advanced that they're accidentally overloading our primitive systems." Maya worked frantically to modulate their receivers, trying to find a way to accept the alien signal without destroying their equipment in the process. As she fine-tuned the frequencies, fragments of something began to emerge from the electronic chaos. Not words exactly, but patterns that seemed to carry meaning and emotion. Pain, desperation, an overwhelming sense of thirst that had persisted for so long that it had become a constant companion. Images of vast spaces filled with flowing liquid, now dry and empty. The memory of coolness against burning tissues, relief that had been absent for countless cycles of day and night. Maya gasped as the sensations flooded through her consciousness, transmitted somehow through the alien communication system directly into her mind. She could feel the suffering of whatever was aboard that vessel, a pain so profound and prolonged that it had worn grooves in their very soul. Maya. Harrison's voice seemed to come from very far away as she struggled to process the overwhelming input. Maya, what's happening? She forced herself to focus, to pull her awareness back from the alien mind that had somehow touched hers through the quantum-entangled communication system. They're dying, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. They've been dying for centuries, and they're begging for help. The transmission continued for several more minutes, filling Maya's consciousness with images and sensations that no human mind had ever experienced. She saw vast underground chambers that had once contained oceans of some life-sustaining fluid, now reduced to cracked mudflats and empty basins. She felt the agony of tissues designed to remain moist slowly desiccating over the course of decades, then centuries, as their ship drifted through the void in search of salvation. When the transmission finally ended, Maya collapsed in her chair, emotionally and physically drained from the experience. The command center was completely silent, except for the emergency lighting systems humming in the background. What did you see? Dr. Okafor asked gently. Maya took a shuddering breath and tried to organize the chaotic flood of images and emotions into something resembling a coherent report. It's a dragon, she said finally, or something that looks like a dragon to human eyes. Ancient, massive, intelligent. Its ship isn't a ship at all. It's like a living habitat that's been dying for centuries. All the water is gone. Everything that kept it alive is gone, and it's been searching the galaxy for something, anything that might save it. Water? Harrison asked. Maya nodded. It needs water. Vast amounts of it. More than we have ever seen in our entire lives. But even a small amount might be enough to sustain it for a while longer, to give it hope that salvation is possible. Marcus Webb looked skeptical. And you believe this? You're willing to risk all our lives based on some kind of psychic vision? It wasn't a vision, Maya replied firmly. It was communication. More direct and honest than anything we've ever experienced. You can't fake that kind of pain, that kind of desperation. Whatever is aboard that vessel has been suffering for longer than human civilization has existed. And it's chosen to approach us because we're its last hope. Dr. Okafor was studying the sensor readings with renewed interest. If Maya is right, then this changes everything. We're not dealing with a potential threat. We're dealing with a refugee, a being whose entire world is dying, who has spent centuries searching for salvation. Commander Harrison looked around the room at his assembled staff, weighing their recommendations against the enormous risks involved in making the wrong decision. Finally, he turned back to Maya. How much water would we need to help it? Maya closed her eyes, tried to recall the images and sensations from the alien transmission. I don't know exactly. The communication wasn't that specific. But I got the impression that even a few hundred liters might be enough to sustain it for a while, to give it the strength to continue searching for a more permanent solution. We have water, Dr. Okafor pointed out. Not a lot, but our recycling systems are efficient. We could spare a few hundred liters without compromising our own survival. Marcus Webb shook his head vigorously. This is insane. We're talking about giving away our most precious resource to an alien entity based on the hallucinations of a 17-year-old girl. What happens if we're wrong? What happens if this is all an elaborate deception designed to weaken our defenses? Then we die, Commander Harrison said simply. But if Maya is right, and we turn away a being in desperate need of help, then we've failed as human beings. We've become exactly the kind of species that doesn't deserve to inherit the galaxy. He paused, looking out through the viewport at the approaching alien vessel, now visible as a faint speck of light against the star field. We came out here to mine minerals and build a future for humanity among the stars. But maybe we found something more important than rare earth elements. Maybe we found our first chance to prove that humans can be something better than just another species competing for resources. Maya felt a surge of hope and pride at the commander's words. This was why she had always respected him, why the entire colony trusted him to make the difficult decisions that kept them alive in this hostile environment. He understood that some things were more important than mere survival. "What are your orders, sir?" she asked. Harrison straightened his shoulders, the weight of decision settling upon him like a familiar burden. "Prepare a water container and a shuttle." Maya, I want you to pilot the craft personally. If this being can communicate with you directly, then you're our best chance of making this work. Sir, I have to protest, Marcus Webb began. Noted and overruled, Harrison replied firmly. Dr. Okafor, I want you to monitor the alien vessel for any signs of aggressive intent. If this goes wrong, we need to know immediately so we can activate emergency protocols. Maya's heart was racing as she realized the magnitude of what was being asked of her. She would be leaving the safety of the mining station to approach an alien vessel the size of a small city, carrying precious water to a being whose true nature and intentions remained largely unknown. The slightest miscalculation could result in her death, or worse, the destruction of everything and everyone she cared about. But as she remembered the overwhelming pain and desperation she had felt during the alien transmission, she knew there was no other choice. Whatever was aboard that vessel had been suffering for centuries, and humanity now had the power to ease that suffering, at least temporarily. The moral imperative was clear, even if the risks were enormous. "I understand, sir," she said. "I'll need about an hour to prepare the shuttle and load the water containers." "Take whatever time you need," Harrison replied. "But remember, Maya, you're not just representing our colony in this encounter. You're representing all of humanity. Whatever happens out there, make sure we can be proud of how our species conducted itself during first contact." As Maya left the command center to begin preparations for the most important mission of her life, she could feel the weight of history settling upon her shoulders. In a few hours, she would either help forge the first peaceful relationship between humanity and an alien civilization, or she would die in the attempt. Either way, she was determined to prove that humans were worthy of the trust that had been placed in them by a desperate alien intelligence crying out across the void for salvation. The shuttle bay hummed with nervous energy as Maya completed her pre-flight checks. The small craft had been designed primarily for short-range mining operations and supply runs between the station and the planet's surface, not for diplomatic missions to alien vessels. Still, it was their only option for reaching the approaching ships safely. She ran her hands along the water containers that had been carefully secured in the shuttle's cargo hold. Each one held 50 liters of the station's precious recycled water, purified through systems that had been running continuously for 8 years. Dr. Okafor had insisted on including a variety of mineral compositions, reasoning that they had no way of knowing what specific chemical requirements the alien might have. "You sure about this, Maya?" asked Rodriguez as he helped her complete the final system checks. The young sensor technician had volunteered to assist with the shuttle preparations, though his hands shook slightly as he worked. "I mean, we still don't really know what's waiting for you out there." Maya paused in her inspection of the navigation systems to look at him. Rodriguez had arrived at the colony as a recent graduate from the Technical Institute on Mars, full of enthusiasm for exploring the frontier. The reality of life on Kepler 442b had worn away some of that enthusiasm, but he was still essentially optimistic about humanity's future among the stars. "I'm scared," she admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. "But I keep thinking about what I felt during that transmission. The pain, the desperation, if someone was suffering like that, and I had the power to help them. How could I live with myself if I didn't try?" Rodriguez nodded, though his expression remained troubled. "It's just, what if Marcus is right? What if this is all some kind of trap designed to make us lower our defenses?" "Then, I guess we'll find out," Maya replied, trying to project more confidence than she actually felt. "But you know what? I'd rather die trying to help someone than live knowing I turned my back on a being in desperate need." The shuttle bay doors rumbled open, revealing the alien vessel suspended against the star field like some massive organic sculpture. During the past hour, it had moved close enough that its true scale became apparent. The thing was enormous, easily 3 kilometers from nose to tail, with graceful curves and flowing lines that suggested it had grown rather than been constructed. Its surface rippled with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in slow, hypnotic rhythms. "My God," Rodriguez whispered. "It's beautiful." Maya had to agree. Despite her fear, she found herself captivated by the alien ship's elegant design. It looked like something from humanity's deepest mythologies made real. A spacefaring dragon whose very presence challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. Commander Harrison's voice crackled over the communication system. "Maya, you're cleared for launch. Remember, if anything goes wrong, you abort immediately and return to the station. We can't afford to lose you. Understood, Commander, Maya replied, settling into the pilot's seat. Initiating launch sequence now. The shuttle lifted smoothly from the bay floor and drifted out into the void between the mining station and the alien vessel. Maya had piloted these craft hundreds of times during her years as a maintenance technician, but this flight felt completely different. Every movement of the controls, every adjustment to their trajectory, brought her closer to a meeting that could change the course of human history. As the distance to the alien ship decreased, more details became visible on her instruments. The vessel's hull was covered in what appeared to be scales the size of shuttlecraft, each one shifting and adjusting in response to some unknown stimulus. Organic-looking protrusions extended from various points along its length, some resembling fins or wings, others looking more like sensory organs or weapons. Maya, we're detecting some kind of energy buildup from the alien vessel. Dr. Okafor's voice came over the radio. Nothing that looks aggressive, but be careful. Their technology is so far beyond ours that we can't predict what they might be capable of. Maya checked her instruments and saw the same energy readings that had caught the doctor's attention. Waves of electromagnetic activity were pulsing through the alien ship's hull, concentrated in the forward sections where she had detected signs of remaining power during the earlier scans. As she watched, the patterns began to intensify, forming complex geometric shapes that seemed to carry meaning beyond mere electrical activity. Suddenly, her shuttle's communications system erupted in the same cascade of signals she had experienced back on the station. But this time, the interface had been modified with shielding and filters that Dr. Okafor had jury-rigged to prevent system overloads. Instead of overwhelming electronic chaos, Maya found herself receiving a clear, direct transmission that bypassed her ears entirely and spoke directly to her mind. Approach. Safe. Gratitude beyond measure for your courage. The mental voice was vast and ancient, carrying overtones of wisdom and sorrow that spoke of countless centuries spent in contemplation and suffering. Maya could feel the alien's presence in her thoughts, not invasive or threatening, but gentle and respectful of her mental boundaries. I can't hear you, she said aloud, knowing somehow that the being would understand her spoken words even if they shared no common language. I brought water. I hope it's what you need. Water. Yes. The essence of life itself. You cannot know what this gift means to one who has thirsted for so long that the very memory of moisture has become a torment. Images flooded Maya's consciousness. Vast chambers that had once contained oceans of life-sustaining liquid, now reduced to cracked basins covered in the crystalline remains of what had once been a thriving ecosystem. She saw the alien itself for the first time, not through human eyes, but through its own perception of its body. The being was indeed dragon-like, though far more magnificent than any creature from Earth's mythology. Its body stretched for over a kilometer in length, covered in iridescent scales that could shift color and texture in response to its emotional state. Multiple sets of wings extended from its serpentine form, though these appeared to be more for maneuvering in zero gravity than for atmospheric flight. Its head was massive and elegant, with eyes that held the accumulated wisdom of geological ages. But the creature was dying. Maya could see the effects of prolonged dehydration in every aspect of its form: scales that had lost their luster, tissues that had withered and contracted, organs that struggled to function without the fluid medium they had evolved to require. The alien had been slowly desiccating for centuries, sustained only by the most advanced life support technologies and an indomitable will to survive. My ship is my body, the dragon explained, sensing her confusion about the vessel's organic appearance. Grown rather than built, evolved rather than designed. For my kind, there is no separation between self and habitat. When my world died and its oceans turned to dust, I became a wanderer among the stars, searching for that which could restore life to the dying chambers of my body. Maya maneuvered her shuttle closer to what appeared to be a docking port near the alien's head region. The structure looked nothing like human engineering, more like a flower bud that gradually opened to reveal a chamber sized perfectly for her small craft. As she guided the shuttle inside, bioluminescent guides illuminated a path to a platform where she could safely land. The docking process was surprisingly smooth, with the alien ship's internal systems automatically adjusting to accommodate her shuttle's different atmospheric requirements. As Maya powered down her engines and prepared to disembark, she realized that the dragon had somehow created a pocket of breathable atmosphere within the docking chamber, specifically for her arrival. Your atmospheric requirements were analyzed from the electromagnetic signature of your vessel, the dragon explained, responding to her unspoken question. Though my body is dying, my knowledge of biological systems remains extensive. You will find the environment within my chambers suitable for human life. Maya gathered her portable breathing apparatus and took a supply of water containers from the shuttle's cargo hold. Each container felt impossibly heavy with the weight of responsibility. These few hundred liters represented not just H2O molecules, but hope itself for a being that had suffered beyond human comprehension. The airlock cycled open to reveal a corridor that defied every expectation Maya had formed about alien architecture. The walls were not walls in any conventional sense, but rather the inner surface of living tissue, pulsing gently with a heartbeat that resonated through the floor beneath her feet. Veins of bioluminescent material provided soft, warm illumination that adjusted automatically to her presence. As she walked deeper into the dragon's body, Maya could feel the alien's consciousness surrounding her like a gentle embrace. The creature was being careful not to overwhelm her human psyche with the full scope of its alien thoughts. But she could sense the vast intelligence that had spent centuries contemplating the mysteries of existence while slowly dying of thirst. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that must have once been magnificent beyond description. The space was easily 100 meters high and twice that in diameter, with graceful ribs of living bone supporting a ceiling that sparkled with what appeared to be stars. But where there should have been flowing water and thriving ecosystems, Maya saw only empty basins and the dried remains of once living reef structures. At the center of the chamber stood the dragon itself, even more magnificent in person than it had appeared in the mental images. Despite its obviously weakened condition, the creature radiated a dignity and nobility that took Maya's breath away. Its scales shimmered with subdued colors that spoke of its emotional state, gratitude, hope, and a sorrow so profound that it threatened to bring tears to her eyes. "Welcome to the heart chamber," the dragon said, its mental voice now warm with genuine affection. "You are the first alien being to stand in this sacred space. Your courage honors both our species." Maya approached the creature slowly, carrying one of the water containers in her hands. Up close, she could see the extent of the damage caused by centuries of dehydration. The dragon's scales had lost much of their flexibility, and its breathing seemed labored despite the artificial atmosphere that surrounded them. "Where should she began, unsure of the proper protocol for offering water to a dying alien dragon. "Here," the creature replied, extending one massive forelimb to reveal what appeared to be specialized pores along its inner surface. "My kind absorbs moisture directly through these membrane structures. Even a small amount will provide enormous relief." Maya opened the container and carefully poured its contents over the indicated area. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The dragon's scales began to brighten visibly, and its breathing became noticeably easier. Waves of relief and gratitude flooded through the mental link between them, so intense that Maya had to steady herself against the creature's limb to keep from being overwhelmed. "Extraordinary," the dragon whispered in her mind. "I had forgotten what it felt like to experience true relief from the thirst. This single container has done more to restore my vitality than decades of careful resource management." "I brought more," Maya said, indicating the additional container she had brought with her. "Not as much as you probably need for full recovery, but hopefully enough to help." "Child," the dragon replied, and the mental voice carried overtones of deep affection that surprised Maya with their intensity. "You have already given me something far more precious than water. You have given me hope. For centuries, I have wandered the void believing that I would die alone and forgotten that my species' knowledge and wisdom would perish with me. But your actions have proven that intelligence and compassion exist beyond the boundaries of any single world or species." As Maya continued to administer the remaining water, the dragon began to share its story more fully. Its name was something that translated roughly as Keeper of the Deep Currents, though the concept carried implications that human language could not fully express. It had been born in a world covered entirely by vast oceans, where its people had evolved as the guardians and shapers of aquatic ecosystems spanning continents. The dragon species had been ancient when the first humans were learning to use stone tools. They were peaceful by nature, dedicating themselves to the cultivation of knowledge and the nurturing of life in all its forms. Their ships were not vehicles in the human sense, but living ecosystems that could support entire populations as they traveled between star systems, spreading life and wisdom throughout the galaxy. But something had gone wrong. A cosmic disaster that the dragon described only as the Great Drying had swept across their region of space, sterilizing world after world and reducing thriving ocean planets to lifeless rocks. The dragon's ship had been one of the few to escape the initial catastrophe, but it had been severely damaged in the process, its internal ecosystems slowly failing over the centuries that followed. "I am the last," Asterisk the dragon explained as Maya finished administering the final container of water. Asterisk, the sole survivor of a civilization that once spanned hundreds of star systems. "I carry within my memory the accumulated knowledge of my people, their sciences, their philosophies, their arts. When I die, all of that wisdom will be lost forever." Asterisk, the thought of such a catastrophic loss of knowledge and culture filled Maya with a profound sadness. She tried to imagine what it would be like to be the last human alive, carrying the entire heritage of her species within her own mind, knowing that her death would represent the final extinction of everything her people had ever accomplished. "You're not going to die," she said firmly. "We're going to find a way to help you. Maybe we can't restore your entire ecosystem right away, but we can keep you alive while we figure out a more permanent solution." The dragon's massive head turned toward her, eyes that held the wisdom of ages studying her with something that might have been wonder. "Asterisk, you would do this? For a creature you barely know, whose species offers you nothing in return." "Asterisk, what do you mean, nothing in return?" Maya asked, surprised by the question. "You're offering us the friendship of an entire civilization. You're teaching us that we're not alone in the universe, that intelligence and wisdom exist beyond the boundaries of our own small world. How can we put a price on something like that? Your species may be young," Asterisk the dragon replied. "Asterisk, but you possess a compassion that some ancient races never develop. This gives me hope not just for my own survival, but for the future of intelligence itself in this galaxy." Asterisk, as they talked, Maya began to notice subtle changes in the chamber around them. The bioluminescent patterns in the walls were becoming brighter and more complex, responding to the dragon's improved health. In several of the empty basins, she could see tiny green shoots beginning to emerge from what she had assumed was dead organic matter. The water she had brought was already beginning to awaken dormant life systems throughout the creature's body. "How much water would you need for full recovery?" Maya asked. The dragon was quiet for a long moment, calculating requirements that involved biological processes far beyond human understanding. "To fully restore my internal ecosystems would require approximately 50,000 cubic meters of suitable water, roughly equivalent to what your species might call a small lake." Maya's heart sank as she realized the magnitude of the challenge they faced. The mining station's entire water reserve amounted to perhaps a few hundred cubic meters, nowhere near enough to provide the kind of help the dragon truly needed. But the aliens seemed to sense her distress and projected waves of reassurance through their mental link. "Asterisk, do not despair, young one. What you have already provided will sustain me for many years, long enough to continue my search for a more permanent solution. And now that I know compassionate species like yours exist, that search has new meaning and purpose." "Asterisk, there has to be more we can do," Maya insisted. "What if we contacted Earth or the other human colonies? If we explained the situation, I'm sure they would want to help." "Perhaps," Asterisk the dragon replied thoughtfully. "Asterisk, though such an undertaking would require resources and cooperation on a scale that might challenge even your species' growing technological capabilities. The water would need to be not just any water, but liquid specifically treated to support the biological processes of my kind. And the transportation alone would represent an enormous undertaking." Asterisk Maya felt a spark of determination igniting within her chest. Throughout her life, she had been taught that humans were problem solvers, that they could overcome any challenge through ingenuity and cooperation. Surely this situation, despite its unprecedented nature, was no different from any other engineering problem that required creative solutions. "We'll find a way," she said confidently. "Humans are good at solving impossible problems. We've survived ice ages, built cities on airless moons, and figured out how to travel between stars. Helping one dragon shouldn't be beyond our capabilities." The dragon's mental laughter was like music, warm and rich with genuine amusement. "Asterisk dragon? Is that what your kind would call me? How delightfully primitive, yet somehow appropriate. Yes, I suppose from your perspective, that is indeed what I am, a dragon from the depths of space, breathing not fire but ancient wisdom. Asterisk, do you mind the term?" Maya asked, suddenly worried that she might have inadvertently offered some kind of insult. "On the contrary, I find it quite charming. My people had no equivalent concept in our language. We simply were what we were, without need for romantic terminology. But there is something appealing about being thought of as a creature of legend made manifest." Asterisk, their conversation was interrupted by a communication signal from Maya's shuttle. She activated her portable communicator to find Commander Harrison's worried voice crackling through the static. "Maya, report. You've been aboard the alien vessel for over 2 hours. We need to know your status." "I'm fine, Commander," Maya replied. "Better than fine, actually. The situation is exactly what I thought it was during that first transmission. The dragon, that's what I'm calling it, is dying of dehydration, but the water we brought has already started to help. It's not a threat to us. If anything, it represents the most incredible opportunity in human history." "Dragon?" Harrison's voice carried a note of bewilderment. "Long story. But, Commander, we need to start thinking about long-term solutions. This being carries the accumulated knowledge of an entire civilization, and it's willing to share that knowledge with humanity. All it asks in return is enough water to survive." "How much water are we talking about?" Maya glanced at the dragon, who projected a sense of amusement at the primitive nature of human communication technology. "A lot. More than we have. But I think there might be ways to solve this problem if we approach it systematically." "We'll discuss options when you return to the station," Harrison replied. "For now, I need you to finish your mission and get back here safely. We're detecting some kind of energy buildup from the alien vessel that has Marcus worried." Maya looked around the chamber and realized that the dragon's improving health was indeed causing increased activity in its biological systems. The bioluminescent patterns were now pulsing in complex rhythms, and she could feel a subtle vibration through the floor that suggested major subsystems coming back online. "Do not be concerned," Asterisk the dragon assured her. "Asterisk, my body is simply responding to the influx of life-giving water by activating systems that have been dormant for decades. Your people's concerns are understandable but unnecessary." Asterisk, the energy readings are normal, Maya reported back to the station. "The dragon's body is just responding to the water by bringing some of its systems back online. Nothing to worry about. Nevertheless, I want you back here within the hour," Harrison insisted. "We need to debrief and figure out our next steps." "Understood, Commander. I'll be returning shortly." Maya turned back to the dragon, feeling a strange reluctance to leave this incredible being alone again. During their brief time together, she had formed a connection that went deeper than mere communication. It was as if she had discovered a kindred spirit in the most unlikely of forms. "You must not feel sadness at our parting," Asterisk the dragon said gently. "Asterisk, this is not an ending, but a beginning. Thanks to your courage and compassion, my people's knowledge will not die with me, and your species has proven itself worthy of that knowledge." Asterisk, will I see you again?" Maya asked. "Certainly. I will remain in this system while we work together to find a more permanent solution to my predicament. And, Maya, I want you to know that in all my centuries of existence, I have rarely encountered a being with such a pure heart. Your species should be proud to claim you as one of their own." Asterisk Maya felt tears forming in her eyes as she prepared to leave the heart chamber. The dragon watched her go with ancient eyes that held depths of wisdom and experience that would take multiple human lifetimes to fully comprehend. But those same eyes also held warmth and affection that transcended species boundaries. As she returned to her shuttle, Maya carried with her the memory of miracle she had helped create, the sight of a dying ecosystem beginning to bloom again with the simple addition of something as basic as water. But more than that, she carried the knowledge that humanity had just taken its first steps toward joining a galactic community of intelligence and wisdom that spanned the cosmos. The flight back to the mining station passed quickly as Maya's mind raced with possibilities and plans. They had encountered not just an alien, but an entire living library of knowledge and experience. The dragon's survival was no longer just a matter of compassion. It was an imperative for the future development of human civilization. As her shuttle settled into the station's landing bay, Maya knew that her life had been permanently altered by her encounter with the dragon. She was no longer just a maintenance technician on a remote mining colony. She was now humanity's first ambassador to an alien civilization, and the responsibility was both terrifying and exhilarating. Commander Harrison and the senior staff were waiting for her in the shuttle bay, their faces eager for news of humanity's first contact with an intelligent alien species. Maya took a deep breath and prepared to tell them about the most incredible being she had ever encountered, and about the challenge that now faced their species, proving that humans were worthy of the trust that had been placed in them by a dying dragon from the depths of space. The emergency council meeting convened 3 hours after Maya's return from the dragon's vessel. The station's main conference room had never hosted a discussion of such magnitude. Representatives from every department crowded around the scratched metal table, their faces reflecting a mixture of excitement, fear, and overwhelming uncertainty about humanity's future among the stars. Commander Harrison called the meeting to order with unusual formality. The weight of the situation had transformed the grizzled colonial administrator into something approaching a diplomat, though his weathered hands still betrayed the nervousness that everyone felt about the unprecedented circumstances they faced. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we are no longer just a mining operation on the edge of human space. As of this morning, we have become humanity's first point of contact with an intelligent alien civilization. The decisions we make in the coming hours and days will be studied by historians for generations to come." Dr. Okafor leaned forward in her chair, her scientific mind already racing with possibilities. "Maya, I need you to describe everything you experienced aboard the alien vessel. Every detail might be crucial for understanding what we're dealing with." Maya had spent the past hour organizing her thoughts and impressions into something resembling a coherent report. The experience of direct mental communication with the dragon had been so intense and overwhelming that translating it into human language felt like trying to describe color to someone who had been blind from birth. "The dragon, that's the closest term we have for what it is, calls itself the keeper of the deep currents," she began. "It's not just an alien, it's the last survivor of an entire civilization that was destroyed by some kind of cosmic catastrophe centuries ago. Its ship isn't a ship in any sense we understand. It's actually the creature's body, grown rather than built, containing entire ecosystems that once supported its species." Marcus Webb shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his security training making him suspicious of everything Maya described. "You're telling us that this thing is basically a living planet? How do we know it's not some kind of elaborate deception designed to make us lower our guard?" "Because you can't fake that kind of pain," Maya replied firmly. "When it communicated with me, I felt what it was feeling. Centuries of thirst, of slow death, of watching everything it cared about wither away to nothing. No one could simulate that level of genuine suffering." Dr. Okafor pulled up the sensor readings from the alien vessel on her tablet. "The biological signatures support Maya's description. We're detecting organic compounds and electromagnetic patterns consistent with a massive living organism rather than artificial construction. Whatever this being is, it's definitely biological in nature. And it needs water," Maya continued. "Not just any water, but massive quantities, enough to fill a small lake. The few hundred liters we provided have already started to revive some of its dormant biological systems. But for full recovery, we're talking about 50,000 cubic meters of specially treated water." Chief Engineer Torres, a practical man who had spent 30 years solving impossible technical problems, whistled softly. "That's more water than this entire system has seen since the planet formed. Even if we stripped every drop of moisture from our recycling systems, our ice reserves, and the atmosphere processors, we'd barely have 1% of what this creature needs. So what are our options?" Harrison asked. Torres pulled up a holographic display showing the Kepler 442 system's resource distribution. "Well, There are 3 other planets in this system, 2 of them with significant ice deposits. The problem is that they're both inside the radiation zone from the local star. Any mining operation would require specialized equipment and months of preparation. Dr. Okafor shook her head. Even if we could access those ice deposits, we're still talking about a massive undertaking. Transporting 50,000 cubic meters of water across interplanetary distances would require a fleet of cargo vessels that we simply don't possess. What about contacting Earth? Suggested Maria Santos, the station's communication specialist. If we explained the situation, surely the colonial administration would authorize an emergency supply mission. The nearest supply ship is 6 months away, Harrison replied grimly. And that's assuming they could even carry the kind of cargo load we're talking about. Most of our supply vessels are designed for manufactured goods and personnel transport, not bulk liquids. Maya felt a growing sense of frustration as she listened to the technical limitations that seemed to make helping the dragon impossible. After experiencing the creature's profound gratitude for the small amount of water she had brought, the thought of being unable to provide more substantial aid was almost unbearable. There has to be something we can do, she insisted. This being has offered to share the accumulated knowledge of an entire civilization with humanity. We can't just abandon it, because the logistics are challenging. Marcus Webb leaned back in his chair, his expression skeptical. Let's talk about that supposed knowledge for a moment. How do we know this creature actually has anything valuable to offer? For all we know, its civilization might have been primitive compared to our own. Maya's eyes flashed with anger at the security chief's dismissive tone. Primitive? Marcus, their technology is so advanced that our sensors can barely detect how it works. The Dragon's ship is a living ecosystem that has survived in space for centuries. It can communicate directly with human minds through quantum entanglement. Their understanding of biology and physics makes our most advanced research look like children playing with toys. Dr. Okafor nodded thoughtfully. Maya's right. The communication technology alone represents a breakthrough that could revolutionize human understanding of consciousness and quantum mechanics. If this being truly carries the knowledge of an entire spacefaring civilization, the scientific implications are staggering. But at what cost? Webb countered. You're talking about committing enormous resources to help a single alien, based entirely on promises and mental communications that we can't verify. What happens if we drain our own water supplies and the dragon simply flies away? What happens if this is all an elaborate test of our gullibility? Commander Harrison held up a hand for silence as the debate threatened to spiral into an argument. These are all valid concerns, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's focus on what we can actually accomplish with our current resources. Torres cleared his throat and activated another display. I've been running some calculations. If we strip our hydroponic systems, reduce our water recycling to bare minimum levels, and tap into our emergency reserves, we might be able to provide another 1,000 liters without critically compromising our own survival. 1,000 liters is barely a drop in the ocean compared to what the dragon needs, Maya pointed out. True, Torres agreed. But it might be enough to sustain the creature while we work on finding a more comprehensive solution. And there's something else to consider. The dragon's knowledge might include technologies that could help us solve the water problem more efficiently. Dr. Okafor's eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. Of course, we're thinking about this backwards. Instead of trying to transport massive quantities of water to the dragon, what if the dragon's own knowledge includes techniques for water reclamation or synthesis? A civilization that advanced might have developed technologies that could generate the water it needs from basic molecular components. Maya felt a surge of excitement at the possibility. I could ask it. When I was aboard its ship, the dragon mentioned that it had extensive knowledge of biological systems. Maybe it knows techniques we haven't thought of. That's assuming it's willing to share such knowledge, Webb interjected. What's to stop this creature from holding back its most valuable information until we've given it everything it wants? Because that's not how it works, Maya replied, her frustration with the security chief's suspicions becoming evident. The dragon doesn't think like a human. It's not bargaining or negotiating. It's genuinely grateful for any help we can provide. The knowledge sharing isn't a transaction. It's a gift born from appreciation for our compassion. Harrison leaned forward, his decision-making instincts taking over. Here's what we're going to do. Maya, I want you to return to the dragon's vessel with whatever additional water we can spare. While you're there, Ask it about possible solutions to the water shortage. Find out if its technology includes methods for water synthesis or reclamation that we haven't considered. And if it doesn't, Torres asked. Then, we start planning for a larger operation, Harrison replied. I'll begin drafting communications to Earth and the other human colonies explaining our situation. Even if help is months away, we need to start the process of organizing a proper rescue mission. Dr. Okafor activated her tablet and began pulling up technical specifications. I'll start analyzing our sensor data from the Dragon's vessel, looking for clues about their technology. If there are solutions we're missing, the evidence should be in the energy signatures and biological readings we've collected. Maria Santos nodded toward her communication equipment. I'll begin preparing a comprehensive data package for transmission to Earth. Video recordings, sensor readings, transcripts of the mental communications. Everything that might convince the colonial administration to authorize a major relief effort. As the meeting began to break up, with each department head returning to their duties with new purpose, Maya felt a mixture of hope and anxiety about the task ahead of her. The dragon had been alone for centuries, slowly dying while searching for salvation among the stars. Now that salvation might be within reach, but only if humanity could prove worthy of the trust that had been placed in them. 3 hours later, Maya found herself once again piloting a shuttle toward the dragon's vessel, this time carrying an additional 500 liters of water that had been painstakingly gathered from every available source on the station. Torres had even managed to extract some moisture from the atmospheric processors, though he warned that they were now operating dangerously close to their minimum reserves. As she approached the alien ship, Maya was struck by how different it appeared from her first visit. The bioluminescent patterns along its hull were noticeably brighter and more complex, suggesting that the water she had provided earlier was already having a significant impact on the creature's health. Several of the organic protrusions that she had initially thought might be sensors or weapons were now clearly revealed as sensory organs that tracked her shuttle's approach with obvious intelligence. The docking process was even smoother than before, with the dragon's body automatically adjusting to accommodate her arrival. As Maya emerged from her shuttle carrying the precious cargo of water, she could feel the alien's consciousness reaching out to embrace her with warmth and gratitude that was almost overwhelming in its intensity. "Welcome back, brave Maya." The dragon's mental voice resonated with genuine joy. "Your return brings hope to chambers that had forgotten what hope felt like." "I brought more water," Maya announced, indicating the container she had brought with her. "Not as much as we'd like, but my people are working on finding ways to provide more substantial help." "Every drop is a gift beyond measure," the dragon replied, extending the specialized limbs that allowed it to absorb moisture directly through its scales. "But I sense that you have come seeking more than just the opportunity to provide aid. Your mind carries questions that seek answers." Maya nodded as she began administering the water to the grateful creature. "My people want to help you, but we're facing limitations that seem impossible to overcome. The amount of water you need is more than our entire colony possesses. We're wondering if your people's knowledge might include technologies that could help us solve this problem." The dragon was quiet for several minutes as it absorbed the life-giving water, its scales brightening visibly with each container that Maya emptied over its specialized membranes. When it finally spoke, its mental voice carried overtones of deep contemplation. "Your people think in terms of transporting and storing water as a finished resource," it explained. "This is understandable given your technological development, but unnecessarily limiting. My people long ago developed techniques for synthesizing water from basic hydrogen and oxygen molecules, using energy sources that your species has not yet learned to harness." Maya felt her heart racing with excitement. "You mean you can create water from scratch?" "Indeed. Moreover, the process can be scaled to any required production level, given sufficient energy input. However, there is a complexity that your people must understand. The water needed for my survival is not mere H2O, but a complex solution containing specific mineral compositions and trace organic compounds that support the biological processes of my kind. Could you teach us how to make this synthesized water?" "Certainly. The process is not overly complicated by the standards of my people, though will require your scientists to develop new understanding of molecular engineering techniques. More importantly, It will require a level of cooperation and resource sharing between your scattered colonies that may challenge your species' current political structures. Asterisk Maya paused in her water administration, suddenly understanding the broader implications of what the dragon was suggesting. You're talking about more than just technical knowledge, aren't you? You're talking about changing how humanity organizes itself in space. Precisely. Your species has great potential, but you remain hindered by the same territorial and competitive instincts that once served you well on your homeworld. To truly flourish among the stars, you must learn to think and act as a unified civilization rather than as separate tribes competing for resources. Asterisk the dragon's mental voice took on a different quality as it began sharing specific technical information. Maya found her consciousness filled with detailed schematics and molecular diagrams that showed exactly how hydrogen and oxygen could be combined using exotic energy sources to create not just water, but the specific biological medium that the dragon species required for survival. The energy source is crucial, Asterisk the dragon explained as Maya struggled to comprehend the complex technical data. Asterisk your people currently rely on fusion reactions and solar collection, but my people learned to harness the quantum vacuum itself, drawing energy from the fundamental structure of space-time. This technique could provide your species with virtually unlimited power, enabling not just water synthesis, but technological advancement beyond your current imagination. Asterisk, this is incredible, Maya whispered, her mind reeling from the implications of what she was learning. But why are you sharing this with us? This kind of knowledge could transform human civilization. Because your species has proven itself worthy of such knowledge through your actions toward me. In all my centuries of wandering, I have encountered many intelligent species, but few that would risk their own survival to aid a dying stranger. Your compassion and courage mark you as a people who can be trusted with the responsibilities that come with advanced technology. Asterisk, as the dragon continued its explanation, Maya began to understand that the creature was offering humanity far more than just a solution to its immediate water needs. The quantum vacuum energy techniques alone could revolutionize human space travel, making interstellar journeys possible in years rather than decades. The biological synthesis methods could solve resource scarcity problems that had plagued human colonies since the first expansion beyond Earth's solar system. But perhaps most importantly, the dragon was offering humanity a glimpse of what they could become if they learned to work together as a unified species rather than as competing factions. The aliens' people had achieved a level of harmony and cooperation that allowed them to spread life and wisdom across hundreds of star systems before their tragic destruction. There is something else you must understand. Asterisk the dragon continued, its mental voice taking on a more serious tone. Asterisk the catastrophe that destroyed my people, what we call the Great Drying, was not a natural phenomenon. It was caused by another species, one that views water-based life as a threat to their own silicon-based civilization. They systematically sterilized entire regions of space, destroying not just my people, but dozens of other aquatic civilizations. Asterisk Maya felt a chill of fear run down her spine. Are they still out there? Yes. And they're slowly expanding their sphere of influence, moving toward regions of space that include your own expanding human territories. My people's knowledge includes not just technologies for advancement, but also warnings about threats that your species will eventually face. Asterisk the implications were staggering. Maya realized that humanity's encounter with the dragon was about far more than first contact with an alien species. It was about preparing for a future in which humans might need to defend not just themselves, but the principle of biological diversity itself against forces that sought to impose their own vision of life on the galaxy. Do not be afraid. Asterisk the dragon sensed her distress and projected waves of comfort through their mental link. Asterisk your species possesses qualities that my people perhaps lacked: adaptability, resilience, and a fierce protective instinct for those you consider part of your community. With the proper knowledge and preparation, you could become defenders not just of humanity, but of all biological life in this galaxy. Asterisk, what would we need to do? Maya asked. First, save me. Asterisk the dragon replied with what might have been humor. Asterisk, a living repository of knowledge is more valuable than any amount of stored data. Second, unite your people around the common goals of exploration and protection rather than competition and resource acquisition. Third, Prepare for challenges that will test every aspect of your species' character and determination. Asterisk, as Maya finished administering the last of the water she had brought, she felt the weight of destiny settling upon her shoulders. She had come to this alien vessel as a simple maintenance technician from a remote mining colony. She was leaving as humanity's first ambassador to a galactic community that included both wonders and terrors beyond human imagination. When you return to your people, Asterisk the dragon said as Maya prepared to depart, Asterisk tell them that they stand at a crossroads. The path they choose in the coming years will determine not just their own survival, but the fate of countless other species throughout the galaxy. Choose wisely. Asterisk, the flight back to the mining station, gave Maya time to organize the incredible information she had received into something resembling a coherent report. The dragon had not just offered them water synthesis technology, it had offered them a roadmap to becoming a spacefaring civilization capable of defending biological life itself against forces that sought to eliminate it. As her shuttle settled into the station's landing bay, Maya knew that humanity was about to face its greatest test. The decisions made by the small community on Kepler 442b would ripple outward across space and time, potentially determining whether humans would become protectors of galactic biological diversity or merely another extinct species in the long history of cosmic conflict. Commander Harrison and his staff were waiting for her again, their faces eager for news. Maya took a deep breath and prepared to tell them that their small mining colony had just become the most important location in human space. The place where humanity's future would be decided through their response to a dying dragon's plea for help. The revelation that humanity faced an existential threat from hostile alien forces sent shockwaves through every level of the mining station's hierarchy. For 3 days, emergency committees worked around the clock to process the information Maya had brought back from the dragon and develop response protocol for challenges that no human had ever imagined facing. Commander Harrison stood before the assembled colony population in the station's main assembly hall, his weathered face bearing the weight of decisions that would affect not just their small community, but potentially the entire human species. The hall was packed beyond its normal capacity, with maintenance workers, scientists, miners, and support staff all crowding together to hear news that would fundamentally alter their understanding of humanity's place in the universe. Ladies and gentlemen, Harrison began, his voice carrying over the nervous murmur of the crowd. 3 days ago, we thought we were dealing with a simple first contact scenario. We have since learned that the situation is far more complex and significant than any of us initially imagined. Dr. Okafor stepped forward with a holographic projector, displaying the technical schematics that the dragon had shared with Maya during her second visit. The complex molecular diagrams and energy equations drew gasps of amazement from the assembled crowd. Even those with limited scientific training could recognize that they were looking at technology far beyond current human capabilities. The being we've been calling the dragon has offered to share technologies that could revolutionize human civilization, Dr. Okafor explained. Quantum vacuum energy extraction, molecular synthesis techniques, biological engineering methods that could solve resource scarcity problems that have plagued our species since we first left Earth. But the knowledge comes with a warning, Maya added, stepping up to address the crowd for the first time since her encounters with the alien. The dragon's people were destroyed by another alien species that views water-based life as a threat. That same hostile force is still active and expanding toward regions of space that include human territories. A wave of concerned whispers swept through the assembly hall. These were people who had already risked everything to build new lives on the frontier of human space. But the idea of facing hostile aliens with advanced technology was a fear that none of them had prepared for. Chief Engineer Torres activated another display showing preliminary designs based on the dragon's technical specifications. The good news is that the technologies we've been offered could provide us with the capabilities we need to defend ourselves. The quantum vacuum energy source alone could power defensive systems that would make our colonies virtually impregnable. The bad news, Marcus Webb interjected grimly, is that implementing these technologies would require cooperation and resource sharing on a scale that humanity has never achieved. We're talking about coordinating efforts across dozens of star systems, pooling resources from colonies that currently compete with each other for basic supplies. Maya felt compelled to speak up, drawing on the wisdom that the dragon had shared with her during their mental communications. That's exactly the point. The dragon's people failed because they never learned to unite in the face of external threats. They were peaceful and wise, but they remained fragmented when unity was essential for survival. Commander Harrison nodded gravely, which brings us to the immediate decision we face as a community. Do we commit our resources to helping this alien creature, knowing that doing so will fundamentally alter our relationship with the rest of human civilization? What do you mean? Asked Elena Rodriguez, one of the senior mining supervisors. Dr. Okafor pulled up another display showing communication logs and resource allocation charts. We've been in contact with Earth and the other human colonies, explaining our situation and requesting support for a rescue mission. The response has been mixed. Maya felt her heart sink as she saw the data that Dr. Okafor was presenting. Of the 12 major human colonies that had been contacted, only 3 had expressed willingness to contribute resources to help the dragon. The others had responded with varying degrees of skepticism, suspicion, and outright refusal to become involved in what they viewed as an unnecessary risk. The Earth Colonial Administration is demanding that we transfer the alien to a more secure location for study, Harrison explained. They want to extract whatever knowledge they can from the creature under controlled conditions, with minimal risk to human populations. That's not what the dragon needs, Maya protested. It needs water and biological support, not laboratory conditions. Moving it away from the ecosystem of its own ship could kill it. Which brings us to the choice we face, Harrison continued. Do we comply with Earth's demands and hand over our alien contact to authorities who may not have its best interests at heart? Do we attempt to help the dragon on our own, knowing that we lack the resources for a comprehensive solution? Or do we try something that has never been attempted in human history? Unite the scattered colonies around a common cause that transcends local political interests. The assembly hall fell silent as the colonists contemplated the magnitude of the decision before them. Maya looked around at the faces of people she had worked and lived with for years, seeing the same mixture of fear and determination that she felt within her own heart. Dr. Sarah Chun, the station's psychological counselor, stood up to address the group. I think we need to consider what kind of people we want to be. Are we explorers and pioneers who take risks to help others, or are we just another group of resource extractors who happen to live in space? Easy words from someone who doesn't have to live with the consequences, muttered Jim Morrison, one of the senior miners. You're talking about risking everything we've built here for the sake of an alien we barely understand. Maya felt anger flaring within her chest at Morrison's dismissive tone. That alien is offering us knowledge that could transform human civilization. It's offering us the chance to become something better than a collection of competing colonies fighting over scraps. And what if it's lying? Morrison shot back. What if this is all an elaborate deception designed to make us waste our resources while some alien invasion fleet moves into position? Before Maya could respond, a new voice cut through the debate. Torres was standing at his communication station, his face pale with shock as he read from a display screen. Commander, he said, his voice carrying an edge of panic. We're receiving an automated distress signal from the Tau Ceti mining operation. They're reporting an attack by unknown vessels using energy weapons that completely overwhelmed their defenses. The assembly hall erupted in shocked exclamations and fearful whispers. Tau Ceti was only 18 light years away, well within the sphere of established human colonies. If hostile aliens were attacking human settlements, the threat that the dragon had warned about was no longer theoretical. Harrison's jaw tightened as he processed the implications of the news. How long ago did this attack occur? The timestamp on the distress signal indicates it happened 6 weeks ago, Torres replied. The signal has been traveling through space all this time. There's no word on survivors or casualties. Dr. Okafor was already pulling up star charts and trajectory analyses. If the attackers are moving systematically through human space, and they hit Tau Ceti 6 weeks ago, then, based on typical interstellar travel times, they could reach our region within the next few months. Maya felt a chill of realization as she understood what this meant for their situation. The dragon's warnings about hostile alien forces were not distant concerns about future threats. They were immediate warnings about enemies that were already attacking human colonies. We need to get back to the dragon immediately, she said urgently. If these are the same aliens that destroyed its people, then it might have knowledge about their tactics and capabilities that could help us defend ourselves. Marcus Webb nodded grimly, his security training finally, recognizing a threat that matched his worst-case planning scenarios. Maya's right. We need intelligence about what we're facing, and we need it now. Debating the politics of intercolonial cooperation is a luxury we can no longer afford. Commander Harrison made the decision with the swift authority that had kept the colony alive through 8 years of environmental and technical challenges. Maya, take whatever water we can spare and return to the dragon immediately. Find out everything it knows about these attackers. Dr. Okafor, begin analyzing our defensive capabilities and see what improvements we can make with our current resources. What about Earth demands that we transfer the alien? Torres asked. Earth is 18 months away by the fastest courier ship, Harrison replied. If we're facing an imminent threat, we can't afford to wait for bureaucratic approval to protect ourselves. We'll deal with the political consequences later, assuming we're all still alive to face them. As the assembly began to disperse, with each department rushing to prepare for potential conflict, Maya felt the weight of responsibility settling upon her shoulders once again. She was no longer just humanity's first ambassador to an alien species. She was now their primary intelligence source about enemies that could determine the survival of human civilization. 2 hours later, Maya found herself once again approaching the dragon's vessel. But this time her mission carried an urgency that made her previous visits seem almost leisurely by comparison. The alien ship appeared even more vibrant than before, with bioluminescent patterns racing along its hull in complex cascades that spoke of renewed biological activity. As she docked and made her way into the heart chamber, Maya could see dramatic changes in the dragon's condition. The creature's scales were noticeably brighter and more flexible, and several of the empty basins were now showing signs of new growth, tiny green shoots, and what appeared to be the beginnings of coral-like structures that would eventually form the basis of a restored ecosystem. Welcome, Maya. The dragon's mental voice resonated with warmth and growing strength. Your gifts of water have brought life back to chambers that have been silent for decades. I'm beginning to remember what it felt like to be truly alive. I'm glad you're feeling better, Maya replied, but I'm afraid I've brought